Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our walkthrough of the Lutheran Confessions. My name is Pastor Jacob Swenson. I am the pastor of St. John Lutheran Church and Trinity Lutheran Church in Hillsboro and Hope, North Dakota. We're going to skip ahead a little bit in the Large Catechism for the sake of time. There is a shorter preface to the Large Catechism as well. If you've been listening to the last couple podcasts, we split the preface to the Large Catechism in 2 days. Well, there is an additional shorter preface where Luther says what he's already said in a shorter form and especially encourages reading of the Catechism for children. We're going to skip that for now. If you have your book-of-concord, you can certainly open up and read it. If you are following along on book-of-concord.org, you can read it there. Today we're going to pick up with the First Commandment, and I'm going to read you the editorial note that'll be helpful to understand because we're going to be spending a lot of time on the First Commandment. This is the editorial note in Concordia, the Lutheran Confessions. Luther spends more time on the First Commandment than on any other portion of the Catechism, explaining how essential it is to know, trust, and believe in the true God, and to let nothing take his place. He was convinced that where this commandment was being kept, all other commandments would follow. A right relationship with God produces right relationships with fellow human beings. Right, so you'll find we're going to be spending at least 2 days here, 2 whole sessions on the First Commandment alone. Because for Luther, this was the biggest deal, that if you had this commandment right, all the rest would follow. If you basically had the right God, all the rest would follow. And consequently, all the other commandments fail when you have the wrong God, such as yourself. Right? So, we're going to begin with the First Commandment. You shall have no other gods. Paragraph 1. What this means. You shall have me alone as your God. What is the meaning of this, and how is it to be understood? What does it mean to have a God? Or, what is God? Answer. A God means that from which we are to expect all good, and in which we are to take refuge in all distress. So to have a God is nothing other than trusting and believing in him with the heart. I have often said that the confidence and faith of the heart alone make both God and an idol. If your faith and trust is right, then your God is also true. On the other hand, if your trust is false and wrong, then you do not have the true God. For these two belong together, faith and God. Now I say that whatever you set your heart on and put your trust in is truly your God. The purpose of this commandment is to require true faith and trust of the heart, which settles upon the only true God and clings to him alone. It is like saying, see to it that you let me alone be your God and never seek another. In other words, whatever you lack of good things, expect from me. Look to me for it, and whenever you suffer misfortune and distress, call and cling to me. Yes, I will give you enough and help you out of every need. Only do not let your heart cleave to or rest on any other. This point I must unfold more clearly. It must be understood and seen through ordinary counterexamples. Many a person thinks that he has God and everything in abundance when he has money and possessions. He trusts in them and boasts about them with such firmness and assurance as to care for no one. Such a person has a God by the name of Mammon, i.e., money and possessions, on which he sets all his heart. This is the most common idol on earth. He who has money and possessions feels secure and is joyful and undismayed as though he were sitting in the midst of paradise. On the other hand, he who has no money doubts and is despondent, as though he knew of no God. For very few people can be found who are of good cheer, and who neither mourn nor complain if they lack mammon. This care and desire for money sticks and clings to our nature right up to the grave. Right, so Luther says, a vast many people are confident and sure that they have God with them when they have money and possessions. And conversely, people are sure that God is not with them when they don't have money. This is what we call the prosperity gospel. And you can find this in American evangelicalism and in evangelicalism throughout the world, that says if you are doing well in life, then God must be on your side. And conversely, if your life is terrible, then God must be against you. And Luther says this great temptation is the most common idol on earth, and it clings to us until we die. Paragraph 10. So, too, whoever trusts and boasts that he has great skill, prudence, power, favor, friendship, and honor also has a God. But it is not the true and only God. This truth reappears when you notice how arrogant, secure, and proud people are because of such possessions, and how despondent they are when the possessions no longer exist or are withdrawn. Therefore, I repeat, the chief explanation of this point is that to have a God is to have something in which the heart entirely trusts. Besides, consider our blindness, which we have been practicing and doing under the papacy up until now. If anyone had a toothache, he fasted and honored Saint Apollonia. If he was afraid of fire, he chose Saint Lawrence as his helper. Side note, Saint Lawrence allegedly was martyred by being placed over an open fire. If he dreaded bubonic plague, he made a vow to Saint Sebastian or Rocchio. There were a countless number of such abominations where everyone else chose his own saint, worshipped him, and called to him for help in distress. Here belong such people as sorcerers and magicians, whose idolatry is most great. They make a deal with the devil in order that he may give them plenty of money or help them in love affairs, preserve their cattle, restore them lost possessions, and so forth. For all such people place their heart and trust elsewhere than in the true God. So they look to him for nothing good, nor do they seek good from him. So you can easily understand what and how much this commandment requires. A person's entire heart and all his confidence must be placed in God alone and in no one else. For to have a God, you can easily see, is not to take hold of him with our hands, or to put him in a bag like money, or to lock him in a chest like silver vessels. Instead, to have him means that the heart takes hold of him and clings to him. To cling to him with the heart is nothing else than to trust in him entirely. For this reason, God wishes to turn us away from everything else that exists outside of him, and to draw us to himself. For he is the only eternal good. It is as though he would say, whatever you have previously sought from the saints, or for whatever things you have trusted in money or anything else, expect it all from me. Think of me as the one who will help you and pour out upon you richly all good things. We'll pause here for today. Luther sets down in these first 15 paragraphs on the First Commandment what it means to have a God. And in a basic sense, to have a God is to look for all good from something, or what you look to in time of need. And he says the most common things are money, possessions, friendship, all these things. Everyone looks to these things for their good, rather than to God. And the meaning of the First Commandment is that God says, I want you to look to me, and to expect from me all good things. Now we'll pause here, and tomorrow we'll pick up in paragraph 16 of the Large Catechism on the First Commandment.